what's up, a Cinema Shogun here, and look, I'll just go ahead and be completely honest with all of you. I wanted to stay away from this topic. Not because I didn't think it was important, not because I didn't think it was worth covering, but simply because of the emotional toll that it has taken on me so far, and the emotional toll that it continues to take on me as I learn more and more details about the shooting at the elementary school in Uvalde, Texas. I know this story has had an emotional impact on everyone who knows about it. Of course, for various different reasons. And it was something that I just wanted to shy away from. But as more and more details come out, I feel the need to speak up. I almost feel an obligation to have to say something here. Now, this isn't going to turn into a gun debate. That's not what this video is here for. In fact, I'm getting tired of every crazy, traumatic, devastating situation turning into a political debate. This is not an opportunity to politically dunk on your political opponents. People lost their lives. People lost their children. Can we at least sympathize with that and acknowledge that before we start fighting about politics and whether who should have guns and who shouldn't have guns and what have you? But while we're on the topic of politics, I'll let you all know right now, I am not a defund the police type of guy. I'm not a Black Lives Matter type of guy, but also, I'm not a back the blue type of guy. I don't think that all policemen are just heroes that can do no wrong. I fall into neither one of those categories. I'm a human being who has a thought process of his own, and I judge situations individually, on an individual basis. With that being said, the Uvalde Police Department has blood on their hands. They extremely dropped the ball in this situation. And I don't even think drop the ball is the right word here. I don't even think there's a word in the English language that can describe how I feel right now after finding out all of these details. After finding out that these police officers sat outside of that school for an hour, maybe a little under an hour, maybe a little over an hour, around an hour, just sitting there doing nothing because they were too scared to do something. Well, actually, let me walk that back. They weren't doing nothing. They were actively stopping parents from trying to help their kids. They were actively tasing, tackling, cuffing, pepper spraying parents who were worried about their kids inside. So they were getting violent with the parents outside of the school, but they were too scared to get violent with the shooter inside the school. Now, listen, I'm a YouTuber. I'm not going to sit here and act like I'm the most courageous person in the world and that I would have just ran in there guns blazing with total disregard to my own life. But like I said, I'm a YouTuber. I didn't sign up to protect and serve. They did. They took the oath. When you take that job, it comes with responsibilities. I feel like we have gone too far away from the protect and serve aspect of policing in this country, at least in some jurisdictions, in some areas. A lot of these police departments, they aren't trained for active shooters. They aren't trained for things like this. You want to know what they're trained for? They're trained for things that make them money, that generates revenue for the city. Police are worried about drug busts. Police are worried about traffic tickets. They're worried about what they can do or how they can reach a certain quota and how much money they can generate for the city. They're not worried about saving people's lives. Now, I want you all to understand, I'm not sitting here saying that's the case with all cops. In no way, shape, or form do I feel that way. I don't think all cops are villains and bad people. I think that it takes a lot of courage to take that job. It takes a lot of courage to put your life on the line every day to protect others. But a lot of people are taking this job without the intention of protecting others. There's a lot of douchebags in the police department that get bullied their whole life and they can't wait to become a police officer so they can have power over other people. There's all types of issues that we could tackle here. But for these officers to sit outside for over an hour as this gunman gunned down little fourth graders inside the school, how could you live with yourself? How could you live with yourself after that? And before you come with, well, oh, police were supposed to do this, police were supposed to do that. No. In 1999, after the Columbine shooting, it became a nationwide protocol that during an active shooter situation inside a school, you do not wait for backup. You do not sit around and wait for orders. You are told to enter the school and engage the suspect immediately. That is protocol across every police department in America. But like I said, a lot of these police departments no longer care about protecting and serving. They care about getting money. You want to know what's really crazy, folks? I mean, when you really have to think about it. You really have to sit and think about it. These same policemen that were sitting outside of that school, they will sit outside the school all day. They will hide behind trees, try to park their cars in areas where you can't see them, so they could pull you over for going 5 miles over in a school zone. Oh yeah. You know the police love setting up speed traps in a school zone when you're trying to pick your kid up from school in the afternoon. So they'll sit outside of school all day trying to catch people going a little over the speed limit, but they won't enter a school to save these kids' lives. Let that sink in. Please. They will sit outside of a school, pulling people over nonstop for speeding in a school zone, but they will not enter a school to save kids' lives directly when there is an active shooter inside the school. But what's worse is that there was a lot of false reporting going on when we first found out about the situation. We were first told that a school resource officer engaged the suspect before he went in. Never happened. We were told that officers, 2 officers at that, they engaged the suspect and they were shooting it out with the suspect. Never happened. None of that ever happened. Police actually arrived on the scene within like 2 to 3 minutes. So it was a quick response time, but guess what? They went in, noticed some bullets were flying, and they got the hell out of there. They got the hell out of there. And decided, oh, well, I guess we should block other parents from coming in here. At one point, some parent got handcuffed. By the grace of God, she talked them out of taking the handcuffs off of her. She then proceeded to jump a fence, ran into the school, and saved her own 2 kids, while the police department sat outside, listening to the gunshots as 4th graders were mowed down inside of this classroom. It's extremely sickening to me. Like, it doesn't get much worse than that. I'm trying not to get too worked up here, folks. But at no point is this okay. We have to have this conversation. It may be a difficult conversation. It may go against your views. It may go against the side that you have chosen. But this is a conversation we have to have. These officers should lose their job. This police department should get sued. But none of that will bring these kids' lives back. It's already been determined that a lot of these kids died from bleeding out. Meaning that if they got the proper medical attention a little bit quicker, they possibly would still be here today. But instead, they were left to bleed on the ground for over an hour as police were scared to do anything. And then they keep bringing up this story about, oh, the shooter barricaded himself inside this classroom. There is nothing we can do. What the hell did he barricade himself with? Math books and a freaking desk with a cubby in it? And that's supposed to stop the police department from getting inside? Oh, if there's a drug bust, the police will pull up in a neighborhood. I've seen it happen with a literal tank. Okay, they will pull up in a residential neighborhood with a literal tank with a battering ram attached to it and battering ram straight through your freaking house over a little bit of drugs. But you want me to believe that a fucking school desk stopped the police from getting inside of this classroom? Well, come to find out, the shooter never necessarily barricaded himself inside the classroom to begin with. In fact, the officers kind of barricaded him in there themselves and decided, hey, we're going to corner him into this classroom. We're going to corner the shooter into this classroom that's full of little kids. And we're going to try to keep him right here. We're not going to try to breach. We're not going to do anything. We're just going to sit here and allow him to massacre kids for hours or for over an hour as we wait on backup. It took the freaking Border Patrol to take this guy out. The Border Patrol. Random agents who weren't even necessarily supposed to be doing this. Some were off duty. Showed up in civilian clothes. Entered into the school and took out the school shooter. While the police were sitting around doing nothing. Let's look at this article. Texas cops said that last night, they didn't immediately rush in to find the shooter on Tuesday's attack after being shot at because they feared they might be killed. And even suggested that they deliberately locked the gunman in the classroom where he slaughtered 21 people in order to trap him. So, that initial story about him barricading himself in the classroom, it's false. Now they're taking credit for it, like it's a good thing. That you cornered this guy into a classroom full of 19 kids and 2 teachers and allowed him to just shoot them nonstop until y'all decided to take him out an hour and a half later. I want you all to understand that there were several 911 calls from the kids that were inside this classroom. Several. Begging and pleading for them to send the police inside. One call even came through and a person on the other end, I think it was a little girl on the other end, let the 911 dispatcher know that there were still a few kids alive left in the classroom. Out of all the kids in the classroom, most of them had unfortunately lost their lives, but they somehow managed to call 911 and let them know that there were still 8 or 9 kids still alive in the classroom. Please come help us. We're not all dead yet. Police did nothing. They sat there, got angry and violent with the parents who were worried about their kids that were standing outside of the school, but didn't have that same energy for the school shooter. Department of Safety Chris Olivares made these astonishing comments about how they cornered the shooter into this classroom and basically had him locked in there. He said that in an active shooter situation, you want to stop the killing and you want to preserve life. But also one thing, of course, the American people need to understand is that the officers are making entry into this building. They do not know where the gunman is. They are hearing gunshots. They are receiving gunshots. And listen, I understand that this is a difficult situation. I understand that the officers are considering their own lives when entering into this situation. But what's the point of having police in the first place if they aren't going to run into these situations to help? What's the point? We don't have a police department so we could call them and they could sit outside of our house for an hour and a half while we're getting shot. That's not why we have the police. We have the police so they can respond when they're called. If you take the oath, you take the oath knowing that sometimes your life may be put on the line. And in this situation, when there's all these little kids inside, it's almost like a lot of people would totally disregard their own lives in this situation once they realize what's really going on here. He then tried to take credit for the gunman being locked in the classrooms with the kids for an hour. The police initially said that the gunman barricaded himself inside the classroom and that they had trouble gaining access to the room. And one unnamed law official anonymously spoke out to say SWAT teams had to wait for a different school staff member to bring them a key to the class. Total BS. Total BS. So you want me to believe that a SWAT team has to wait on a key to enter a classroom, like they can't just blow the freaking door off the hinges, like they can't blow a hole through the lock? They're waiting on a literal key. Oh, we got the key now. Let's walk on up to this classroom with the gunman inside of it, unlock it, and just let ourselves in. Total BS. I'm so tired of getting fed BS by the mainstream media. It's crazy. And so many people, they read this stuff and they eat it on up and they just go about their lives. No, folks, we're being lied to about literally everything. At this point, if they proceeded any further, not knowing where the suspect was at, they could have been shot. They could have been killed. At that point, that gunman would have had an opportunity to kill other people inside that school. Lord Jesus, I don't even know what to say here. Listen, obviously, when there's an active shooter situation, the police are going to have there's going to be a possibility that some police officers get shot. Let's just put it like that. It is what it is. It's sad. It sucks. But that's the reality of the situation. That's why we have the police. So when you have a gunman who is barricaded in this classroom, what the hell do you think you're going to do? You have to enter into the classroom. Once again, if this was a drug bust, and they knew there was a drug dealer inside with millions of dollars, a bunch of contraband, a bunch of drugs that would equal up to how much many dollars, they would bust right in that place, no F's given. But because it's a school, because it's just a bunch of elementary school kids in there, who cares about them? We're worried about kilos. We're worried about this. We're worried about that. We're not worried about these kids' lives. Like, what's the deal here, folks? Let's be honest here. Why weren't these kids' lives as important as the drugs that the police try to confiscate on a daily basis from people across America? It happens every day. They kick doors in. They don't care if they know these people are armed and dangerous. They don't care. They're not scared of that because there's a big payday on the other side. There was no payday on the other side of this door. Just a bunch of innocent little kids. Innocent little kids are disposable in today's world. Let's just be honest. So he's basically making excuses like, oh, the police couldn't possibly know where he was. I'll give you a freaking hint. He would have been on the other side of the door in the classroom somewhere. There's only so many freaking options. You guys are trained for this. You breach the door. You look to this side, that side, front side. Some shots are going to get fired. That's how this stuff happens. It's that simple, folks. It's not like there's an unlimited amount of possibilities of where the shooter would be. You bust down the door, you know he's going to be right there. It's one freaking room. Lord Jesus. So they were able to contain the gunman inside that classroom, so he was not able to go to any other portions of the school and commit any other killings. Okay, I'm happy about that. I'm happy that he wasn't able to just go around the whole entire school shooting people. But at the same time, your best option can't be to corner him inside of a classroom full of kids and just say, hey, you know, those kids are disposable. As long as these kids are okay. That's not how you do it. And you damn sure don't wait over an hour to confront the guy. Over an hour. This guy is just sitting in the classroom. He was listening to music, saying some really creepy things to the people, to the kids that were in the classroom, shooting them randomly. He didn't just come in and kill all of them to begin with. He was picking people off as time went by, as officers sat right outside listening to the gunshots, too scared to confront him. And then the Border Patrol arrives. What do the police do? The Border Patrol were ready. From the moment they arrived, they were ready to enter into the building and to confront the gunman. The police stopped them as well. The police held them back as well. And eventually, Border Patrol agents, along with parents, started to try to help kids get out of windows and what have you. And eventually, Border Patrol agents entered into the building and took the shooter out. But when they did it, they were actually defying orders because they weren't even supposed to enter the building then. Now, it's been said that the guy who actually winded up taking the shooter out wasn't even supposed to be at work that day. There's a picture of him in civilian clothing, the bulletproof vest thrown over him. He took a graze wound to the head and a shot to the leg. But you know what? He went in there, he took the shooter out, and he did what he was supposed to do. While these other officers sat by and did nothing. The Border Patrol agents even said that they didn't understand why they were being told to stand down. It goes against every protocol. You don't stand down in these situations. You stand up and you confront these situations. Now, people have come out and they are slamming how this was handled. There's tons of officers, ex-officers, Border Patrol, school officers, ex-school officers. They're all coming out saying that this was handled horribly. Waiting an hour is disgusting. If that turns out to be true, then that is a disgusting fact, says Sean Burke, a retired school resource officer from Massachusetts. If you've got somebody you think is actively engaged in harming people or attempting to harm people, your obligation as a police officer is to immediately stop that person and neutralize that threat. We don't expect officers to commit blank in doing so, but the expectation is that if someone is about to harm someone, especially children, you've got to take immediate action to make that stop, says Don Alwas, an ex-instructor for the National Tactical Officers Association. So I don't want you all to think that I think that all police are this way or all police would react this way. I know that that is not the case. I know there's plenty of heroic officers out there who bust their ass and put their lives on the line every day. I want you all to understand that. But that doesn't mean that these officers are immune from ridicule. We have to get away from these movements where you just think you have to think one certain way or you have to think another certain way, and you can't stray away from thinking that way at all. There's so many back the blue people who will not acknowledge that this was a failure on the behalf of law enforcement. And at the same time, there's so many defund the police people that won't acknowledge that defunding the police is not necessarily the answer to the situation. And then, of course, there's the great gun debate. And I'm not here to debate guns, but what I will say is that guns don't kill people. People kill people. Now, you can argue all day if there's a gun problem in America or if there isn't a gun problem in America. That's up for you all to decide. But you want to know what there is? There is a people problem in America. A people problem. There is a mental health crisis in this nation, and no one wants to address it. We got little boys thinking they're little girls. We got little girls thinking they're little boys. We got all of these kids on hella antidepressants, random medicine that makes them not as excited and as energetic, all types of stuff. We're pumping these kids with pharmaceuticals that we don't really understand. We got these kids seeing God knows what on social media, being exposed to God knows what on the internet. There's a mental health crisis in this country, and instead of tackling that situation, instead of acknowledging that situation, what we've chose to do as a society is to enable these mental illnesses. Not only are we enabling people with mental illnesses, we're boosting them up like they're heroes. We want to acknowledge that there's something wrong with some of these people. We want to acknowledge that a lot of these people are going through things mentally. Instead, we're acting like mental illnesses are cool. Mental illnesses are the new hip thing. That's what we're doing in this country. We are glorifying mental illnesses. And then we sit here and wonder why some confused, idiotic, evil-ass kid decides to shoot up some other kids. It's because these people are all screwed up in the head and no one wants to talk about it. No one wants to talk about it. No one wants to do anything about it. But we're going down a slippery slope. This is not going to end. You could take guns away tomorrow. This is not going to end. It's not going to end until we tackle the people problem. The mental health problem. We have to stop shying away from these tough conversations. Look around you. Look at where we have come as a society. Guns, they've been around since before me or you were even thought of. This issue with mass school shootings and stuff didn't start taking place until pretty recently. Within my lifetime, and I'm only 31 years old. This is more of a trend that has started within the last couple of decades. Right alongside the trend of enabling mental illnesses, acting like mental illnesses are cool, acting like anyone is a horrible person if they point out these mental illnesses. Right alongside the rise of the internet and social media. There's issues that we need to talk about in this country. And it's not necessarily always the issues that people want to talk about. And I'm not saying that we shouldn't have a talk about those other issues as well. And you're free to feel how you want to feel about the gun debate and about this debate and about the police or that and that. That's all fine and dandy. But until we acknowledge the mental health crisis and until we tackle that problem, this is going to keep happening. Evil will find a way. And we have to find a way to stop it. But as far as this whole entire situation goes, I've looked into it a lot. I've looked into it pretty thoroughly. There's a lot of information that I know that I'm not comfortable in disclosing yet because I'm trying to double check my facts and things of that nature. So there's a lot of things about the situation that I won't speak on yet. But as of right now, from what we know so far, I am just absolutely disgusted that this happened in the first place. You know, before we point the blame at anyone, this happened because of one sick individual. Could people have responded better? Yeah, they definitely could have. And we're going to talk about that more. But we have to remember that all of this happened because of one evil person. Like I said, I'm almost at a loss for words when it comes to this entire situation. I'm extremely upset by how the police handled the situation. I can't imagine how the parents feel. To know that there are parents out there that are battling with themselves right now, wondering, hey, maybe if the police didn't stop me from entering into that building, maybe my child would still be here. Or hey, maybe if the police decided to enter into that building, instead of sitting outside scared for over an hour, maybe my child would still be here. That's not something that I would want to live with on my conscience for the rest of my life. And I hate that there's people out there that have to live that way. Prayers out to everyone who was affected. Prayers out to everyone who has kids. Prayers to just everyone in general, because we all need it in today's day and world. But I want to know your thoughts about this down in the comments below. While you're down there, hit that thumbs up button, hit that subscribe button, ring that notification bell, and I'll talk to you on the next video.